Welcome back to Nation of Glory. Today, we bring you the life story of a man who transformed music, who turned his pain into beauty, and who became one of the most celebrated artists of all time. His name is Sir Elton Hercules John, a legend whose voice, piano, and unforgettable showmanship captured the hearts of millions. This is not just the story of fame and fortune. This is a story of resilience, of friendship, of survival, and of a man who dared to be himself in a world that often tried to silence him. Elton John's journey began on March 25, 1947, in Pinner, Middlesex, England. He was born Reginald Kenneth Dwight, a boy who grew up in a modest household. His father, Stanley Dwight, was a Royal Air Force officer, a strict man who struggled to show affection. His mother, Sheila, was full of energy and music, filling the house with records and tunes. Little Reggie, as he was called, found solace in sound. At just 3 years old, he sat at the piano, and within moments, he was playing melodies he had heard on the radio. It was clear this child was touched with a gift. By the age of 11, he had won a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music in London. Imagine that, a boy from an ordinary family walking into the hallowed halls of classical training. He studied Beethoven, Chopin, and Mozart, but what he loved most was rock and roll. At home, he listened to Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, artists who seemed wild and free. Reggie longed for that freedom. Music became his escape, his world, his hope. But like many artists, his home life was complicated. His father was distant, critical, and often dismissive of his son's dreams. There were arguments, disapproval, and a lack of support. Reggie carried that pain with him, and in many ways, it fueled the fire that pushed him to prove himself. His mother, however, encouraged his talent, even if she didn't always understand him. By his teenage years, Reggie was playing in pubs, earning money on weekends, and honing his craft. He joined a band called Bluesology, backing other artists on tour. But deep down, he knew he wanted something more. He didn't want to just play in the background, he wanted to create, to lead, to sing his own songs. And then fate stepped in. In 1967, he answered an ad in a music magazine, looking for songwriters. That's when he was paired with a young lyricist, named Bernie Taupin. The two had never met, but something magical happened. Bernie would write words, and Reggie would bring them to life with music. It was the beginning of one of the greatest partnerships in music history. Reggie Dwight soon transformed into Elton John, a name inspired by two members of Bluesology. And as Elton John, he embraced not just a new identity, but a new destiny. Together with Bernie Taupin, Elton began writing songs that would change the world. The late 1960s and early 1970s were the birth of something extraordinary. Elton's early albums began to gain attention, but it was the release of Your Song in 1970 that catapulted him to fame. A simple, heartfelt tune written by Bernie and brought to life by Elton's soulful voice and piano. The world stopped and listened. This was something different. This was something timeless. From that moment, Elton John became unstoppable. His music poured into radios, record stores, and concert halls. His shows were unlike anything audiences had ever seen. He wore glitter, feathers, sequins, and glasses as big as his face. He turned every performance into a spectacle. But beneath the costumes was a man with extraordinary talent, a pianist whose fingers danced across the keys, and a voice that carried both joy and heartbreak. The 1970s were a golden era for Elton John. Album after album, hit after hit, he dominated the charts. Songs of love, loss, hope, and wonder flowed endlessly. He sold out stadiums, shattered records, and became one of the biggest stars in the world. His partnership with Bernie Taupin was at the heart of it all. Bernie gave him words, Elton gave them wings, and together they created magic. But fame is never without its shadows. Behind the glamour, Elton struggled. The pressures of stardom, the loneliness of the spotlight, and his battle with identity weighed heavily on him. He turned to drugs and alcohol, seeking escape from the pain he carried inside. Though adored by millions, Elton often felt isolated, lost, and broken. His music was soaring, but his personal life was spiraling. Still, he kept performing, kept writing, kept giving the world his gift. And the world kept embracing him. Elton John was more than a musician, he became a symbol of expression, of freedom, of courage. He was unapologetically himself, even when it was difficult. At a time when being openly different could end a career, Elton's flamboyance and honesty inspired countless others to embrace who they were. In the 1980s and 1990s, Elton's journey took new turns. He faced heartbreak, health scares, and the devastating loss of friends during the AIDS crisis. But instead of retreating, he used his platform to raise awareness. He founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which has since raised hundreds of millions of dollars for research and care. His compassion turned his pain into purpose. Musically, Elton continued to evolve. His ballads, his anthems, his voice at the piano never lost their power. He collaborated with countless artists, from rock legends to pop stars. And in 1994, when Disney asked him to write songs for The Lion King, Elton created music that touched an entirely new generation. The film's soundtrack won him Academy Awards and Grammys, cementing his place not just as a rock star, but as a cultural icon. In the years that followed, Elton John became more than an artist. He became Sir Elton John, knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 1998 for his services to music and charity. It was a recognition not only of his incredible career, but of his impact on society. From the boy at the piano to the global superstar, Elton's journey had come full circle. Yet, even then, his story wasn't over. Elton found love and stability with David Furnish, his husband, and together they built a family. Fatherhood gave him a new sense of purpose, a grounding that fame had never provided. For all his accomplishments, Elton often says that being a father is his greatest joy. In 2019, the world got to see Elton's life on the big screen with the biopic Rocketman, a film that celebrated his triumphs while also confronting his struggles. It showed the man behind the glasses, the boy who became a legend, the human being who fought his demons and found peace. Audiences around the world were reminded not just of Elton's music, but of his humanity. And then, in 2024, Elton John reached another milestone. He became the 19th person in history to achieve EGA status, winning an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. A rare achievement, and a testament to the breadth of his artistry. Few artists have touched so many mediums, influenced so many lives, and left such a lasting mark. Today, Elton John's legacy is undeniable. He is one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with over 300 million records sold. But more than numbers, his music lives in people's hearts. His songs have been soundtracks to weddings, to heartbreaks, to celebrations, and to quiet moments of reflection. His voice, his piano, his presence, they are woven into the lives of millions. Elton John's story is not just about fame. It is about courage, resilience, love, and the power of art to heal. It is about a boy named Reggie who dreamed of music, who became Elton, and who gave the world more than just songs. He gave us a reminder that even in our darkest times, there can be light. And so, as we look back on his journey, we see more than just a musician. We see a survivor, a pioneer, and a man who never stopped believing in the power of music to change the world. Elton John's story reminds us all that greatness is not about being perfect, it's about being true to yourself, sharing your gift, and lifting others with you. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the life of Sir Elton John, right here on Nation of Glory. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you the stories of the legends who inspire us all.